at one time I was the president of the Addis Ababa Chamber of Commerce and also the Ethiopia Chamber of Commerce. And so I knew pretty much the challenges that chambers go through. First of all, trading has been going on for quite some time, even across the continent, but not really at the level that many people would want to see.
What is the future of AfCFTA?
Now we have to bring more businesses to understand and also to learn how to use the AfCFTA. You know, you can still trade without the AfCFTA today across the continent. I mean, the one thing that I believe makes trade very easy is to have the right infrastructure. I like to try new things.
I see.
And all new things usually are not really that easy to carry out.
Yes. When you dream about a better Africa, we dream of an Africa which is easy to do trade. And that's why today we speak about trade in the African continent. Hello and welcome to Globe Traktion. My name is Persil Telewa. Today on the show we speak so much about the African Continental Free Trade Area. As I sit down with Kebour Ghenna, an Ethiopian national who is the Executive Director of Pan-African Chamber of Commerce and Industry based in Africa. We speak so much about the challenges the AfCFTA has faced ever since it was incepted. But just on a light note, we also get to know his family. I hope you enjoy the show. Many thanks, Mr. Kebour, for making time to speak to us today. I understand your schedule is very busy as we speak, and you need even to head out at the moment, but thanks for making the time.
My pleasure.
Thank you. So tell me a little bit about the role of PASI.
Well, PASI stands for the Pan-African Chamber of Commerce and Industry. It's an organization established in 2009 by some 35 chambers of commerce across the continent, which gathered in Addis Ababa and launched this project. The idea at the time was to help the continent's chambers of commerce to be their voice at continental level, but more importantly also to provide guidance and leadership during the negotiations for the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. So basically, this was the main aim of the organization.
When you speak about 35 member states, do you mean there are countries that are not part of PASI as we speak at the moment?
No, I'm talking about during the establishment.
Oh, great, great.
So the establishment was made by
35
these chambers of commerce coming from 35 countries. But now we are serving all the 54 countries in the continent.
Yes.
So basically, we have grown from 35 to 54 over the period of from 2009 to 2024 now.
Yes.
But I think the most important part is for the organization to be closer to the chambers of commerce. Mm-hmm. And this is not really that easy actually in this continent where logistics is really rather difficult actually, meaning transport from one place to another, communication.
What do you mean about logistics?
Logistics, I mean crossing, let's say, from Addis Ababa to Accra for a meeting, or from Accra to Southern Africa.
Yes.
It's expensive, first of all, and it's not really that easy to move from one place to another. But the after COVID technology, actually, which gave rise for the use of telecom, virtual meetings, and things like that, I think it has become more easier, actually, for the Pan-African Chamber to relate and to work with its members.
That is good news. And now you are the director of the Pan-African Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So what is your role as the director? Because I understand you're the first director. Am I correct?
Yes, I'm the first director.
Congratulations. And you've served since 2011.
Yeah, and I do this as a volunteer.
What do you mean?
Yeah, as a volunteer, because
Yes.
it's not really easy to run a continental organization of this ambition when you don't have really the funds to do that. It requires a lot of work to bring the chambers together,
True.
to be able to build trust for partners, and to be able actually to gradually be recognized as a chamber, and then basically you'll be able to get more funding actually coming to you. So that's a task that I took upon myself to establish and to run this organization. So I will say one day to my kids, when they ask me, what did you do? I say, oh, I tried to put together this organization, which hopefully will continue in its path for the next many, many years.
So now, Mr. Kebour, let's speak a little bit about the AfCFTA, as it's famously known, the African Continental Free Trade Area. And to some of our small businesses, this may not be something that they hear about every other day, or perhaps they even don't know how to navigate. But let's first of all, hear from you. How has it enhanced industrialization?
Well, it's it's an interesting concept in the sense that it has been discussed for quite some time, since the early 80s, actually. Yes. Let's say those who we call actually the fathers of the continent have always wanted to put together an institution that will help African countries to come together, to integrate. So this AfCFTA, the negotiations started in 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
And the first signature of the agreement was signed in 2018. So it is a very recent organization.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult actually to expect any impact at this moment. In fact, trading has started in 2021 as a pilot, actually. So you have some businesses, in fact, some Kenyan businesses who've started using the AfCFTA to export, for example, coffee or tea to Accra, Ghana.
Yes.
And the same thing from Accra, from Ghana, actually, to Kenya. But this is something that would sort of continue to grow. And as you know, over 90% of businesses in the continent are small and medium enterprises. And so basically this AfCFTA is also to help these companies to grow, but also to be able to be ready exporters into other African countries. Basically what it brings is you have already the COMESA, where Kenya, as you know, is a very active participant.
Yeah.
And now it has other African countries to also service or to also provide actually goods to these countries. So it's a starting point at this stage, but I think this is particularly for the Kenyan businesses, this is a very good opportunity to expand their market share and their market area.
So talking about the market share and the market area, we are talking about 54 countries, trading together. How do you ensure that there is balance? Because also most of our African countries, trade in raw materials as opposed to finished products. So how have you been able to, take care of everyone's interest?
Well, first of all, trading has been going on for quite some time, even across the continent, but not really at the level
actively,
at the level that many people would want to see, as compared to other part of the world, Europe, the US,
and America,
or Asia. Now, the AfCFTA, it's not just an agreement that reduces tariffs, but also an agreement that helps investment, that helps competitiveness, that helps services to be provided, actually. And so it has a number of areas
Yes.
determined and also guided by certain rules and regulations. Now, the investment part of it would allow, for example, depending on the market share, for African businesses to come together and invest, so that, I mean, the investment can be in Kenya, or the investment can be in Central African Republic, or any places in the continent. It means like Kenya is no more the border where businesses actually are conducted. You have the East African Community,
Yes.
you have the COMESA, and now you have the AfCFTA. So it makes it even larger, actually. The pie becomes larger and more interesting, particularly for Kenyan businesses who seem to be, particularly in East Africa, the major economic hub for the region.
Now that you're talking a lot about East Africa, I would like to understand how we are dealing with, inflation. And when I talk about inflation, my interest again goes to the currency that we are using to trade with. Because as you know, each of African states have different currencies. How do we, get to a point where we feel like, it's all working out for the common of all of our good? Because I understand the West Africa trade with one currency, which is the French franc, if I'm not wrong. What about the rest of,
This is work in progress. As you know, there is the AfCFTA as part of its plan to facilitate exchanges, is working on what is called the Pan-African Payment Settlement System. It's usually called PAPS. And so it would allow countries to exchange using their own currencies.
Yes.
And that is yet to be implemented, but there is a movement around the world today not to depend on just one or two currencies. So this is work in progress. For now, actually trading continues the way we've been trading for quite some time. But the AfCFTA, let's say, creators have looked at that problem and have said, no, we have to find a way to trade using our own currency, or some currency that would be acceptable to all. So I won't be able to tell you, this problem is resolved, but it is something that...
It's a process, it's underway.
It's a process, but also something for many young Kenyans, young Africans, to come into the fold and try to find a solution to this problem.
And now that you mentioned young Kenyans, young Africans, I would like to know, how does the micro and small enterprises benefit from the AfCFTA? What is it in it for them?
Well, there are quite many ways that they can benefit directly. Actually, you already have some businesses actually doing cross-border trade. So now that cross-border trade can be expanded, but they can also be part of a value chain for larger companies. A company that is, let's say, well established, doing business across the continent, usually works with smaller companies that would bring in inputs, intermediate inputs, let's say, for that company. So you'll have more of these actually being part of the AfCFTA. Maybe they may not be directly exporting or importing from other parts of Africa, but they can work with companies that do this business, and you can say they are indirectly benefiting from the AfCFTA. Indirectly
benefiting from the AfCFTA, from the director, Persil. There's also the challenges. When you're trying to roll a new program or project, there's bound to be challenges. And one of the challenges that AfCFTA has faced, and which is, on your understanding, is the tariffs and non-tariff barriers. And you were speaking about it, yesterday. And the businesses are saying, yes, it's free trade area, but it's not free as such, because we still have so much to, prevent us from going on with business. So speak to me a little bit about that particular challenge and how perhaps you're thinking about, what could be the solution?
Well, it's part of the game.
Yes.
Actually.
Yeah.
So you have now an agreement that has been signed, as I said, by excuse me, by some 54 countries.
Yeah.
So there is a frame to be used for trading. But there's always players actually in that arena that would not want to play according to the rules, or find the loopholes actually in the rules that makes it very difficult for, let's say, an exporting company to be at the same level of businesses in the country where it wants, let's say in the host country.
Yeah.
Although the agreement would allow and would permit and would ensure that all players are on equal footing. But sometimes you might find a way actually to curtail these kinds of arrangements to happen.
Yeah.
So these are some things that chambers of commerce or industry associations should be involved in reporting them, because there is a mechanism to look into these problems and try to find a way of resolving this problem.
Yeah.
So actively, businesses have also to look around and see whether there is a fair play. If there's no fair play, there is a mechanism to report, and authorities have to take measures actually to improve that situation. But this is something that you'll find all over the world, where such agreements actually is used to facilitate trade. So yes, the non-tariff barriers are the major barriers actually to make the AfCFTA very smooth.
Yeah.
But it's something that we have to fight, actually, to not allow the non-tariff barriers actually to make it very difficult for businesses to trade.
Yeah, and I think you'd agree with me that non-tariff barriers are, specifically making it hard for businesses to trade. And from where you sit, you agree with me when I say sometimes solutions or taking steps or, just mitigating these issues can take such a long time. For instance, the issue of bribery, when people are trying to transfer or transport their goods to a particular market, and then they are faced with 10, 14 barriers. All of these 10, 14 barriers are not even put in place by the governments. These are individuals, and these individuals purportedly are not working in their own whatever. The governments are aware that these individuals are on their way, but then nothing has been done. So how do we also curb, fraud and bribery? Because these, I'd call it bribery. What do you have to say about that?
Well,
is it our culture or what is it?
No, it's no, I wouldn't want to say this is part of the culture. I think when you have a policy that allows these kinds of loopholes actually to get through, then you will get this kind of situations. Everybody would want actually to sort of take a shortcut for to benefit. But the government itself has to be active and has to believe in the free trade framework, because it helps governments to increase their tax revenues. It helps businesses to increase their capacity to create jobs and to pay taxes and so on and so forth. So it is really the responsibility of the government to make sure that these non-tariff barriers are to a certain extent reduced, if not eliminated. But the government, as you said, sometimes may not have the capacity to do that, or may not see the urgency of doing this. And so it will not be fair for those signatories of the agreement to find themselves in such situations. But the African leaders have shown in so many ways that they are committed to the CFTA. And I'm sure that they will find a way, and businesses will find a way, but all of us actually will find a way to address this problem, which, as I said, it's not really that easy, which also is very difficult for me to say, yes, I think there is a ready-made solutions to address this problem.
Yeah. There's always a problem, you know, and we are also seeing the problem of bulky documentation or documentation, you know, to be specific, because, for instance, you're based in Addis, and you're supposed to cross over, pick a document in, you know, a different office that is miles away from you, or you're based in a village somewhere in Ethiopia, and you need to head all the way to Addis to collect that particular document, because you need that document to help you as you go ahead with your business. How are you looking forward to, you know, solve this logistical documentation issue?
It's part of infrastructure. I mean, you raised one particular infrastructure problem. You could have raised also the issue of transportation. The roads are not really that easily maneuverable. We have very difficult roads, challenging actually for trucks to go from one place to another. The same thing can be said about air transport, very expensive and, you know, unavailable the way we want them. The same thing with port issues or maritime actually transport. And this is the telecom infrastructure. And one has to work in those telecom infrastructure. What we realized, and I think after COVID, and many people have sort of saw this, that there has been a change in people's mind. There's the transportation industry today, particularly the air industry, the airline industry is competing not with other airlines, but with Zoom or with similar sort of applications.
Yeah.
So you have less and less people traveling for a 1 day or 2 day meeting.
True.
And having actually these meetings online or virtually. So these problems exist, but the solutions is also there. What is required is really the investment to put up the infrastructure, to train people, and to help them use those systems, because you can have an infrastructure. If you don't have really trained people, or if you don't have really the encouragement for people to use them, then you're not advancing your cause. So yes, I mean, we have to invest in infrastructure. In fact, the one thing that many people sort of agree is for the AfCFTA to work, you need to have the infrastructure in place, actually. If you don't have the infrastructure in place, then it's very difficult to have a free trade in the continent.
Is digitization of, you know, documents something you're looking into?
Yeah, we are. There is a protocol actually, which is called the Trade Digitization Protocol. So that in that protocol, you will see a lot of articles on infrastructure, on the use of private data, on emerging technology, how to deal with emerging technologies.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a lot of, in fact, there's a lot of information in that protocol, which would, in many ways, improve the communication across the continent.
How are we going to digitize these documents? Sorry, I'm going to go back and forth with that. Yeah, how are we going to digitize these documents, but at the same time also curb fraud? Because you understand, anyone is likely to forge, you know, a document or a certificate of origin, for instance, whatever it is. So as you think about digitization, are you also putting in a framework to just curb fraud as well?
No, I think Kenya
Yeah.
is at the forefront of digitization. If you do remember, very recently, we required actually to have a visa actually to come to Kenya. Not Ethiopians, though. And the same thing, Kenyans going to Ethiopia don't need visas.
Yeah.
But, you know, with the new, what they call the electronic travel authorization, everything is digitized. Right? So you are anywhere in the world and you can apply for ETA, pay electronically, and arrive in Kenya, arrive in Nairobi, and here you are in the country. So basically, this is just one example which came to my mind for now. But in many ways, I think there is no alternative for many countries besides using technology to modernize, to upgrade their services. People have questions and they want answers immediately. People want services and they want that services to be provided immediately. And the one tool that can do that is digital sort of tools or digital capabilities. And so this is something that is very much part of the AfCFTA, and it is something that, in my opinion, will very quickly develop, but not at the service delivery only, but as you know, it can also have impact on payment systems, it can have impact on transfer of funds from one place to another. So we are, I think, very well placed at this moment, actually, in launching these technologies for the services of businesses across the continent.
As a Pan-African myself, I'm worried about you speaking Amharic, I'm speaking Swahili, somebody else speaking a different language. How are we going to deal with language barrier? For instance, I want to trade with Ethiopia, and they want to trade with me, sell to me part of their nice coffee, you know, and I sell to them part of our agricultural produce, you know, perhaps nuts or something of the sort. So how are we gonna, you know, communicate within the African nation? Is that something?
A very difficult question, because today many cultures want to protect their own culture, their own language, their own way of doing things.
Yes.
And so it's something that we need really to learn how to do that, how to speak not just English or Amharic or Swahili, but as Africans, at least we may need actually to speak 3-4 languages depending on the region that we are. And I don't see any problem with that, frankly. But I think we've been conditioned for too long to sort of say, yes, you need to have one language to develop, but what is development anyway? If you do not develop your culture, if you do not develop your language, I mean, the variety of what Africa has to offer the world, I think it's something that we need, in one way or another, protect and live with it.
Protect and live with it. So you don't want us to have one common language, as you know?
No, I want you to learn Amharic, and I will learn Swahili.
And I think that would be a nice idea. But I'm also concerned about, when the AfCFTA was just coming up, there was a lot of, talk and speak about the African woman. So far, down the line, it's a year plus, since its implementation, right? Since it kicked off. I would like to know how, has the African woman benefited and what is in stake for her?
No, there is, again, in writing,
yes,
there is a protocol that tries to make women really benefit from the AfCFTA as basically men benefit from the AfCFTA. There is a particular protocol women traders, let's say.
Yeah, which is
to
the third protocol, something?
The protocol on, I don't exactly remember the protocol's title, but what it does is it opens and it supports women in businesses to benefit from the AfCFTA. And it will encourage associations of women to come forward and put up proposals or argue their case actually across the continent. So that's the first step actually. But I think women themselves today are beating men in all sort of ways. So I don't think, for me, I don't think this protocol, although important, is something that will soon be over, let's say, overpassed by women really getting to the level where they can benefit from the AfCFTA as men benefit today from the AfCFTA.
I think let's wrap up this AfCFTA, conversation by looking at what is in the plan for AfCFTA going into the future. Because right now you've tested the waters, you understand how it's going to work, you understand how it's working, you've seen the loopholes, you've seen the challenges, and I'm sure there are meetings going on every other day on, creating solutions. So what is the future of AfCFTA?
Now we have to bring more businesses to understand and also to learn how to use the AfCFTA. You can still trade without the AfCFTA today across the continent. I mean, the one thing that I believe makes trade very easy is to have the right infrastructure. If you have the right infrastructure, sometimes you may not even want, you look at it and then you say, the tariff, it's not really that high in any case, so I'm not going to put up the form, for AfCFTA to reduce tax, to go through the tax reduction and so on and so forth, depending also on the amount of products that you are moving from one place to another. But as infrastructure develop, as you said, we go out of meetings every day and bring the private sector operator around the table, or also around the actual business operation, then things will move on by their own.
Mr. Kebour, I would love to know, you took up office in 2011 as the director, but prior to that, you're still, serving the commerce, industry in Addis and Ethiopia, and you are also a lecturer, if I'm correct, and you've worked in boards, different boards of, different companies. So tell me, how has your role prepared you, or how did your role prepare you for picking up the AfCFTA, or rather the PASI assignment?
Well, PASI was established in 2009, but I wasn't party to it. Actually, I came to it in 2014, basically. Because, as I said, it is an organization that was established by 35 chambers of commerce. But then, in these kinds of situations, it's easy to launch something, but to maintain it, it requires a lot of, let's say, resources, both human, technical, but also financial resources. By the way, at one time, I was the president of the Addis Ababa Chamber of Commerce and also the Ethiopia Chamber of Commerce. And so I knew pretty much the challenges that chambers go through. And incidentally, actually, I was working for the World Bank at the time as a consultant. And that particular assignment required a regional business organization, and there wasn't really any regional business organization across the continent, actually, or continental organization. And so I heard about the Pan-African Chamber, and so I approached actually those responsible people to help us in that particular task. They were willing to do that particular task. We did it. It was a conference actually that took place in Brussels, I suppose, at the time. But then it died off again. And so I said to myself, why not actually commit myself and see if I can take it to where I can take it actually as an organization. And this is how I volunteered myself to be the executive director, and I'm still the executive director. My plan is to finally pass this organization to the next generation, and we are training actually young people. You've seen actually my colleague actually who is doing fantastic work in in Nairobi, actually organizing this meeting. So now I will certainly move on in the next 2-3 years actually. In
the next 2-3 years. Before you move on, I'd like to know, how is family doing? And tell me a little bit about everything. I understand you're a dad, Mr. Kebour.
I've left home actually. So I have 2 kids, but I don't call them kids anymore
because they are all grown up.
They're older. They're not married actually, but still they are. The oldest is in his 30s, and the youngest is in her late 20s.
Are they all girls?
No, a boy and a girl. So it was well planned actually.
Impressive. I trust it when you say it was well planned. How has it been, juggling? I'm sorry to ask you this, because I tend to tell myself this is such a silly question, but we never understand that it's so much, just being in a career that is quite involving, and also raising family. Because I understand many people may take it for granted, but how has it been for you, to say this is family and this is, work?
I don't know. I mean, it's very difficult to sort of think back and say whether I did well or not. But thankfully, actually, the kids came out quite fine on their own. So I was lucky enough to have these 2 kids, which sustain themselves, work and at the same time have fun, I believe, actually, in their life. But I don't think there is a particular formula that one has to follow. I never followed my parents' formula or some other people's formula. I guess I tried to be as a responsible father as possible, actually, and to try to guide them the way I thought would be the best way for them. And that's about it, actually. It works sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't work, actually. So there's no particular sort of way or particular formula that you can pass on to others.
And what challenges have you faced along the way?
Challenges, I mean, the challenges, I always face challenges. Sometimes I think I look for them, actually. The challenges. I think, for me, I think these are, I like to try new things.
I see.
And new things usually are not really that easy to carry out.
Yes.
It has, they have their own ups and downs, but that's what keeps me going, I believe, anyway.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Kebour. And I'm a signaler.
Thank you.
You told me I need to learn Amharic. So I'm all over trying to see how do I learn a little bit of, Amharic and French, because we also have Francophone countries, so that when you get to meet your brother, then communication barrier is not a problem. So
I love it. I love the first, you first try actually the Amsegnala one.
I did.
So keep it up. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I hope you got a few insights if you're a small business, a big business, or even a young person or a woman who will listen to our conversations today. Many thanks for watching this show, and make sure you join us again next Saturday at 8:30 p.m. Kenyan time only on KTN News. If you have a story you'd like to share with us, please don't hesitate. Write to us through Globe Traktion at standardmedia.co.ke or DM us on our social media platforms at Globe Traktion We're at KTN News KE. You can also tap that follow button to me on my social media platforms at Persil Telewa on Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, and YouTube for more behind the scenes and many other amazing stories. But until then, I hope to catch up with you again soon, same time, same place. Bye-bye for now.